The Raymond family. There were many names calling this family in the past. A prestigious family of founding contributors who pioneered the northwestern part of the continent together with the founding king and founded the country. The first Duke of the Kingdom. A reliable ally of the royal family. But 700 years have passed. All of Raymond's high honor has long been forgotten. There was only one name for the Raymonds, who were no longer titled. Ruined reputation. Russell was the only descendant of the Raymond family. Black hair and crimson eyes, which are not common on the continent. And even the corners of the eyes that looked pretty sharp. The soldier's words faded as he confirmed the surname Raymond written on his identity card for a while too. Confirmed. You may go in. A 25-year-old young man, leaving behind the voice of a soldier who gave back his identity card and allowed passage. Russell passed through the gates. This is Camelot, the royal capital. The royal road of the kingdom of Endymion, which is said to be the only one in the continent that can compete with the empire. Is it because the panoramic view of Camelot was dazzlingly splendid? Neat buildings, well-organized city views, and all kinds of people passing over them. Those wearing robes often stand out. It's no wonder. It was already 2 months ago that the White Tower, one of the 4 major magic towers of the royal capital, announced that they would hire a lot of freelance magicians, albeit for a short period of time. With only a few days left before the exam, it was only natural for the wizards of the kingdom to gather at the royal capital. I'm one of them too. Let's turn our head one big turn. 4 buildings built along the directions of the north, south, east, west, and outskirts of the capital come into view. Buildings in the form of spiral towers that combine towers and spirals, towering as if to protect the royal road. Those spiral towers or these towers were called the 4 magical towers of the royal capital. Among the 20 or so magic towers that exist in the kingdom, red, blue, white, and yellow, located at the apex of each of the 4 magic towers, were the 4 dual king capital 4 magic towers. There were times when I struggled to get into that place. No, there was a time when I went to the academy hoping to enter at least an ordinary mage tower instead of there. But now, it has become an impossible dream. Because I was expelled from the academy. Scary to think of the word academy. The memories of the time raised their heads. That person? You know, a senior who has been paid for 3 years already. Ah, that old man. But if you've been in the senior class for several years and you're still in the 1-2 circle, isn't that just not trying? No, they say he's actually a hard worker. Then, they said there was a problem with the Mana Road. Russell Raymond. The first student in the academy to repeat grades 3 times. There is no 4th grade in our academy. Mr. Russell. I'm sorry about your circumstances, but I have to leave the academy now. No matter how good your written test scores are, can't we graduate you who haven't even completed the 2ND circle from our academy? I'm sorry. Memories I don't want to recall again. Russell frowned and sighed deeply. It was obvious why the academy made achieving the 2N circle as a condition for graduation. It should be that much. But I won't be ashamed to introduce myself as a wizard anywhere. In fact, some of the best graduates even reach the 3RD circle. A few years after being expelled from the academy like that. A few years of wandering while doing freelance work and mercenary work at the same time, abandoning even the honor of being a prestigious aristocrat at one time. Could it be because I was very lucky? Thanks to 2 very special magics, Russell was able to achieve the 2N circle. Of course, it was already too late. Recalling the memory of that time, Russell put on a self-deprecating expression. Father. The loss of the territory and the noble rank is only the story of one's own generation just 10 years ago. Even in Taiwan, the Raymond family maintained the title of Count. Even though it was small, he also owned the estate. Of course, it wasn't that great. Even that, in fact, was in the middle of a downfall. Father said he would raise such a family, and led the soldiers of the territory to the war. It was to establish a major Count Raymond's back. Riding a horse and leaving the estate with soldiers was the last image of his father that Russell remembered. After my father passed away, the evaluator dispatched from the royal family retrieved the fiefdom and title bestowed on the family. It was based on the judgment that he could no longer afford to maintain his title and fiefdom. But even so, if you ask if there is no hope for the Raymond family, that's not the case either. As generations passed, the power gradually weakened, and in the end, even the territory and title were recovered, but Raymond is a family of founding contributors. Because the Raymond family had one exception that other nobles did not have. An exception to recover the county title if a wizard from the 5th circle is born, and the marquis title if a wizard from the 7th circle is born. However, his talent as the only blood relative of the one remaining family had to be like this. Somehow, the taste was bitter. This disgusting punishment that gnaws away my life as a wizard. Even if only this heavenly punishment could be completely dissolved. I hope it can be much better than now. Mana Road stenosis. congenital Manhwa stenosis. It was the name of the punishment Russell was suffering from. Because the Manhwa is too thin and weak by nature, it is the heavenly punishment of magicians who can neither accept nor extract more than a certain amount of mana. Thanks to the two magics he acquired while wandering as a freelancer, it was a little better compared to the beginning. Thanks to that, I was able to rise to the two-end circle. However, unless there is a way to completely neutralize this punishment, life as a wizard is still far off. Eventually, Russell let out a long sigh. Let's start by looking for accommodation. That moment, suddenly, something caught Russell's gaze. A huge quadrangular pyramid-shaped building protruding from the center of the royal capital's buildings, the Rubria Museum. The only museum that exists in the kingdom of Endymion. There were still a few days left before the job interview. If so, I thought it wouldn't be bad to broaden my knowledge through field trips since I've come up to the royal capital. If I'm lucky, I might be able to get a clue to cure my illness. It's unlikely, but that place was a museum owned by the royal family. All kinds of objects and national treasures will be on display, of course. The placenta abnormality would be fake. Considering theft and other problems, it would be safe to keep most of the original items in the royal family's treasury. But even if it is a fake, the description below is not false or fictitious. Despite not making a decision, Russell's gaze remained fixed on the museum. Let's go. After making a decision, Russell turned to the museum, as if he had felt the pull of fate. Are you new? The question of the soldier who was checking the ticket at the entrance of the museum. You must have a lot to see. When Russell said yes, he put on a proud face. Then, rather than trying to see it all in one day, I recommend splitting it up. You mean by division? Exactly. If you try too hard to see everything in one day, you won't be able to see anything properly. In that case, wouldn't it be better to spend a little time and see it properly? Apparently, he worked at the entrance of the museum for many years and saw a lot of things. There's nothing wrong with keeping it. Russell nodded appropriately, and the soldier let him in and smiled lightly. Then, have a good time. The inside of the museum looked quite spacious. The part where you can find out why the soldier guarding the entrance said such a thing. It's not just what you see from the outside, but how many floors are inside the basement. The experienced person was right. So, according to the plan I made as advised, I visited the museum for a while. The next coffin. Is it a fantasy species? They are unknown entities that have not been revealed so much. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't interested. That moment when I continued to watch while thinking that, tall. Russell's steps stopped involuntarily. Rather than consciously doing it, it feels like instinct or fate. Right after that, I felt a strong pull in my heart. Suddenly, Russell turned his head. I encountered something that felt as if it were calling me. Is this a stone? It was a stone. A stone the size of a fist, not very large. Or something that looks like an apple that is dried up and has no moisture left. But why can't I take my eyes off this ugly thing? The distance between it and myself was about 10 meters. Russell moved slowly, as if possessed by something. The long-awaited fate. Or, a sense of unavoidable fate engulfs the whole body. Finally, the distance between Russell and it was reduced to only a few tens of centimeters. All that remained between him and it was a thin wall of magically treated glass. I feel a strong echo inside my inner pocket. This time it was a clear and strong echo that even he could feel. This. It was a ring and a keepsake. A keepsake left to her young self after her mother, whose memory has now faded, passed away. A ring imitating the eyes of a dragon and studded with jewels. Even though she fell into ruin, her mother also came from an aristocratic family. Did they say that it was passed down as an heirloom from such a mother's family? The jewel embedded in the ring shone faintly. The pounding of the heart. Fate or attraction felt in a stone and even the trembling of the ring. The three seemed to resonate in the middle of a strange silence, as if time had stopped around them. Russell slowly brought the ring towards his finger. At the same time, I read the words written under the dried stones as if possessed. The heart of a polyp. Even if it were a dragon species, it would not be a real dragon heart. In the first place, there is no way that a real dragon heart could be displayed in a place like this. Still, it might be the heart of a fairly high-ranking polyp. In any case, it will be a fake. Even if it's genuine, all of the magic power that's close to it has been exhausted, and all that's left is an empty shell. Clearly, that was a rational decision. But I know that, but why can't I take my eyes off it? Reason denied that it was fake, but the trembling of the heart felt as if it was shouting that it was real. And finally, the moment the ring is put on your finger. This name covered the whole area. As if the gears that make up the world were cracked, the world reflected in Russell's eyes was distorted. Stones and keepsakes. The will of the great being flowed from his heart and eyes and consumed Russell's consciousness. An irresistibly strong mental wave shakes Russell's consciousness. A voice rang through Russell's ears, which collapsed with a moan. Heart and eyes meet, and another eye opens, so there is nothing lacking to become the cornerstone of a new myth. However, the voices heard were not over yet. The Dragon God King's eyes checked the information of the world. The status window and mission of the successor, Russell Raymond, are activated. Unlike the beginning, a voice that is somewhat hard and light had already lost consciousness, said those the Dragon God King's eyes checked the information of the world. The status window and mission of the successor, Russell Raymond, are activated. Unlike the beginning, a voice that is somewhat hard and light, but Russell, who had already lost consciousness, said those words. Didn't hear as soon as the words were finished, the time surrounding Russell passed. It started flowing backwards. Dragon swallowed wizard.